I played through Dredge's Iron Rig DLC, so you don't have to. You still should. Not too long ago, I went back through Dredge on its PS4 version to grab the Platinum a second time and get prepared for the DLC. Now, as stated in the description of the DLC and my previous video, this DLC is a little bit longer than the Pale Reach DLC, but still has that leave it up to the player to decide on how they want to feel about what they just witnessed type of vibe to it. This time, however, we're giving more of a story with new characters to talk to and interact with, as well as adding another location like the Pale Reach did, but this time this DLC uses the whole map instead of just one isolated spot. Once downloaded, it will load into whatever world you have going on or just about to start, and you can be guided by this big ass tower of light if you're far away. So with a bit of an intro out of the way and a $12 price tag, let's get into the review. This whole video will be spoiler territory, so if you don't want to be spoiled, click off the vid and come back later. For everyone else, let's get into the video. Following our same protagonist, we find ourselves picking up crate after crate labeled for the Ironhaven Corporation as we head towards this new drill rig that just appeared out of thin air after you downloaded megabytes of data. Wild times we live in. Anywho, arriving to the bottom dock, we run into the foreman of the rig who explains to us that shipments that are required to get the rig up and running have been lost at sea to some mysteriously large circumstances. So, our job now becomes traveling the waters and search for the crates of materials to help build and get the rig up and running strong again. While we have this set goal now, we also come face to face with the scientist of the rig, which just spells out blatantly to us that this isn't your ordinary off-coast oil rig. And after getting the generator running by dumping piles of fish inside of it, now before I continue, that's what I call green energy right there. No emissions from crushing up the local sea life. Just put it right back into it. We send the drill into the depths only for it to be precisely in the middle of a fault line that connects to each of the 5 archipelagos that ends up sending mysterious goo up into and around the areas. These faults bring up extinct fish that have been kept away for some time, floating eyeballs, nope, not those ones, these ones, giant goo creatures. The fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is that thing? You wanna fuck off, mate? Jesus Christ. And a very angry Kraken or Cthulhu, whichever one works for you. Progressively making the environment worse and worse, searching for these samples that just so happen to engage the next archipelago going up into goo after they're all found. Our friend the scientist is slowly losing his mind, almost talking crazy like our frozen pals over in the Pale Reach. But before we can acknowledge that, we learn of a way to get a defense system like the one we used against this fucker in the Stellar Basin, but at a bigger level. And as we learn, our scientist friend who also stationed at the basin there, the one we gave the dog to, used to work for Ironhaven and was working under our new mad scientist friend. Searching her out and asking her about everything that is going on, she gets us a blueprint for the flea defense system that is able to drive the creature away. Unfortunately, one creature after another, the Ironhaven boss has arrived. Lighting into the foreman, only to send the drill down deeper. As this continues, we get a visit from our pal, the Leviathan. But even that can't knock sense into the boss, so the workers come up with a plan to self-destruct the rig in order for it to be shut down before destroying anything else in the world. And so they can get home safely. So instead of fleeing, we get the blueprint from the scientist lady to make it echo rise instead of flee. But before we can even get to all this, we come back to our new scientist friend, hiding behind his chalkboard, cracked off the sauce, and with one last fish to drop into his sample box. This time, instead of studying them, the bitch just eats them, turns into a fucking lizard, and jumps out the damn window. Well then, so since we have no more reason to keep working here and now only to save the workers from this evil corporation, we tap in the tower's black box to turn it from flee to rise, sending the tentacle back up, crushing the rig's legs, but before anything can happen, the Leviathan comes through and eats it. Leviathan, hero of the story, question mark? This event sends Boss Man choppering away and us left to our own devices. Woo! Collecting every single newly added species and aberration, here we come. So with the story recap out of the way, let me give you my thoughts on this DLC. If you enjoyed the Pale Reach, I definitely believe you'll enjoy this. Works in the same way, trying to keep things very suspenseful and never really fully showing those true horrors of what could be underneath you at all times besides our good friend and hero of the story, the Leviathan, and explaining the main points on just how Buddy turned into a fucking lizard and how the voices work and how they change people and where they even come from. This time, however, with pacing, we were able to release a little bit of that suspense with more Leviathan and Cthulhu active screen time, as well as character development and our scientist lizard pal, seemingly watching him lose it the moment we stepped foot on the rig. Compared to last time where we got lured into suspense and blue balls with the sighting of this giant beast and a very chill crew and a cool group of guys. However, I'm eager and love this sort of shit, so I want to be spoiled with all these visuals and hopefuls of seeing these bigger creatures in full action, full tilt. But that's really my only gripe with Dredge's suspense and pacing. Other than that, the story-wise, I love this DLC. I love the environment of the rig and the push towards using the entire map instead of just one isolated area. Although for the gameplay, it did get a little repetitive traveling back and forth, but I'm going to equate that with me also just recently playing the game again, going back and forth to collect every single species again for that platinum. I'll take the blame on that end. However, the new additions of new gameplay mechanics in terms of upgrades, new fishing equipment, new mini-game fishing quick-time events, and more characters to interact with who are actually alive, besides just the traveling merchant, are very fresh for the game. Also, putting use to any leftover materials and scrap we had throughout the main game with newly added crafting mechanics that involve those pesky Iron Haven crates, cleaning up all this goo like we're frickin' Mario and Sunshine, only to turn it into canisters for crafting. Not only does this add to the crafting, we get a better understanding of that pesky message during our original playthrough of the game. Something slithers into your cargo hold. We accept that shit now. Give me all the goo, doesn't matter if it poisons our fish, who cares, we're swimming in that shit now. But let's go back to a few points I glossed over there. The fishing mini quicktime events have changed and I love it. It's like we're playing on a pinball machine, dope little change up for our new extinct fishy friends. Secondly, upgrades galore. A whole new hole for more space. New variations of the rods and reels we've been using can now be crafted with the originals so we can put them to good use instead of just selling them. On top of that, we have our abilities like our lights, foghorn, and spyglass, which now can all be upgraded, adding a few extra perks along with it while we're out on our travels. Now, before I continue, I am a bit upset in the fact that the only supernatural upgrade we have here is for the haste ability. I do believe that's the most important supernatural ability, but I thought we'd be getting a lot more than just that, so I'm a little let down in that section of the game. Simply because the way we upgrade the haste, all these other upgrades here are all for normal abilities only. I thought you'd have like a separate category for each of them, but it's fun, but still a little bit of a bummer, a little bit of a letdown. I wish there would have been more. But anywho, things added in the repair tech portions of the factory will allow you to keep doing what you're doing out in the open sea, allowing you to take T, lowering your insanity, fixing singular hull damage as well as fixing up pots and nets and keeping on the move instead of in search for a place to dock with a repair shop. Now, I didn't use any of these throughout my time in the DLC because I'm just so constantly trained to keep on the move and keep a reliable boat dock in sight at all times, or sometimes I just say fuck it and keep trucking even if I'm losing my mind while traveling to an archipelago 2 archipelagos away. So, cool little add-ons, but I didn't use them. Let me know down below if you did, and same goes for anything else in the DLC you might have done differently. Moving on, we can now create all those materials we've been hunting so hard for throughout the main game to upgrade our boat to the max using the foundry portion of the rig. If you have a bulk of these crates and need materials instead, here's your time to shine. Toss them in, bada boom, bada bing, you've got more stuff to add on to your ship. Also, didn't do this in my playthrough by the way, but now that I'm saying that for a second time, I'm beginning to believe that playing this DLC on a maxed out account, instead of doing all this on a new run for the first time, might make all these features more worthy of being used. Most likely, but moving on. You can also now gather materials anywhere with the help of the new tiered up trawl nets that allow you to pick up materials instead of fish while moving. Next, we have the same situation but with the crab pot. And lastly, a newly created device allows us to suck up all the goo areas and turn them into dark canisters, which can also help in crafting some of the new bait types. As for the enemies added, we've got these little guys that don't really do much, but I assume when they hit you, they drive your sanity down. Also, they give you some dark goo on impact, so that's nice too. As well as this big guy, he will spawn in if you're in the goo with heavy sanity loss. And then we have these random ass tentacles that love to just spawn up and slap the shit out of you if you don't move out of the way in time. Other than that, everything here is pretty normal besides the added screen time of Leviathan Pal and this newly purple behemoth under the water that seems to be able to move and reach up anywhere at any time. Or is there more than one? Who knows? Also, one more thing, not enemy related but kinda is, when the cracks are now established on the map and in the world, you can see how far down the water actually goes, which for me, someone who is terrified of the ocean mainly due to the seemingly unknowing, never-ending depth of darkness underneath you, this kind of causes the spookiness to go away for me when I can see the bottom of the ocean. Overall, I think the path taken of these Dredge DLCs is a good one. It doesn't overload you with stimulating jump scares or throw everything but the kitchen sink at you, but it does give you a suspense with little dabbles of satisfaction sprinkled in. From all that time, you're wondering what's going on in this strange world. So this one will rank higher than the Pale Reach for obvious reasons mentioned above. Bigger, more content, more everything, but I do love the Pale Reach as well, of the dope setting of glacier working gone wrong, long. Either way, if you haven't picked up these DLCs yet, don't be coming in expecting hours upon hours of content. They are relatively short, especially if you know what you're doing. But with that being said, they're still really good. Although I wish they were a little bit on the lower price side. Even though they're great, the length of them, I can definitely see that driving people away from appreciating what's going on here. But that's just me. Thank you everybody for watching. Peace out.